Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Late Night Larry, where I talk about certain subjects late at night in my garage. And I'm actually going to be making a couple of different videos tonight in particular, but we're going to talk about, in this video, we're going to be talking about one subject, and I kind of talked about it actually a good amount in my Car on the Hauler post-race show, whether you watched on YouTube or listened on Spotify. I talked a little bit about NASCAR fighting in NASCAR, because of the Chastain Suarez stuff. And I'm not really going to talk too much about Suarez. If you want to hear more about my thoughts on Suarez versus Chastain, I recommend you listen to this week's edition of Car on the Hauler, which will be not over there. Over there, I'll be putting a little, whatever you call it, a little link up there. That way you can watch Car on the Hauler and listen to my thoughts about Suarez Chastain. But I, in particular, want to talk about fighting in NASCAR and my thoughts on it, and if we should have it. I actually, if you listen to Car on the Hauler or watched Car on the Hauler, I gave a little bit of an outline of what I would like to see from NASCAR fighting going forward. And I think there is some differing opinions. I think most people agree with me. If the drivers want to fight, let them fight. I think that's NASCAR and fighting has been a thing for a very long time. Obviously, it's not like the NHL or hockey where there could be a fight every single game, and sometimes there is a fight in a bunch of games. That's just what happens in hockey sometimes. NASCAR, it's obviously not as bad, I would say, and they don't get as violent as like a hockey fight, for example, would get. But a lot of people have to keep in mind, one of the things that helped NASCAR blow up was there was a fight in the infield at the Daytona 500 with Cale Yarborough and the Allisons. Like that was a huge moment for our sport. And then of course we've seen a lot of other fights since then, like the Kevin Harvick, Ricky Rudd stuff, the Kevin Harvick, Greg Biffle stuff, Kyle Busch, and all the people that he's fought. You know, there's been many fights. You had Chastain punch Noah Gragson a couple years ago. I think it's been a big part of our sport for quite a while. And I think we've lost that. And I understand NASCAR's takes. They don't want the drivers getting hurt, stuff like that. I get that. I get that 100%. But if both drivers want to fight and it's in at least a somewhat safe environment and it doesn't get out of hand, I think they should be allowed. I think they should be allowed to throw some haymakers if they want to, as long as both sides want to fight. And I personally felt in that Suarez-Chastain situation that both of them wanted to throw hands. I thought they both wanted to fight on pit road, but they weren't allowed to, or they didn't want to risk getting fined or whatever. So that's one thing we need to first take away is the fines. I don't think drivers should get fined for flat out fighting. I think I gave a little bit of an outline on Car on the Hauler, and I'm going to kind of discuss it here as well. This is kind of my outline, and I kind of thought about it on the spot on Car on the Hauler, so I've been able to think about it even a little bit more, what my outline would be for NASCAR fighting. What I think they should do is whatever two drivers want to fight after pit road, after the race, they pull up on pit road. Maybe they pull up next to each other and they both go over the radio. Hey, I want to fight. Hey, I want to fight, or something like some sort of code word or something. And the crew chiefs organize it, and there's no hands thrown between team members. Don't touch each other. All that stuff. Just let it be between the drivers. And if both drivers agree to fight, I think both drivers should head to the grassy area, the closest grassy area in front of the start-finish line for multiple reasons. There's two reasons, really. That way the fans could get a decent view of it. Obviously, they're all the way in the grandstands. They're not going to get the best view of it, but at least they can see it. Because I remember when I was at Las Vegas, I was videotaping Denny Hamlin. I see something on the screen about Suarez and Chastain pushing, and then all of a sudden I'm looking all around the place to find Suarez Chastain, and I'm not paying attention to Denny, and I could never find. Obviously, after the fact, I found out where they were on pit road, but at the time, in the moment, I couldn't find where they were on pit road. So that, and also more of a safety factor, because I think that's one of NASCAR's big concerns, is one of these drivers gets punched so hard they fall on their back and their skull bounces off the pavement or the asphalt or the concrete or whatever sort of surface the pit road ends up being. And I think that's a legitimate concern. I understand that. I think that is a legitimate concern. But what I'd say they do, as long as both drivers, and obviously the sponsors would need to be in agreement as well. And I think there's some sponsors that would be okay with it. I think some sponsors may even be like, yeah, you should fight. That would be great promotion. But I also think there's also probably even more sponsors that would be like, that just doesn't, is it promotion? Yeah, but it's not really our brand. We don't want our brand being associated with fighting. And I understand that. So it might not be possible what I'm suggesting. But if we're going to do NASCAR fighting, this is what we should do. Both drivers would have to agree to fight. They both walk into the infield along with maybe 2 or 3 team members, crew members each, maybe their crew chief and or the spotter's not down there yet. So probably the crew chief or something like that, along with a couple of just security members in case if it gets out of hand or the crew members start getting involved or whatever. But what I should say is those 2 drivers don't have their racing gloves on, don't have their helmets on, and they get 20 to maybe at the most 30 seconds to just fight it out. No one else gets involved. And the fight automatically ends if one of the 2 goes to the ground or there's blood drawn. Or if obviously if there's a third person getting involved, which if we set out these rules and parameters, I would highly doubt a third person would get involved. But if a third person gets involved or something along those lines, then obviously blow the whistle on that as well. And that's why you have all the security members. Send as many as you possibly can without making the pit road itself unsafe. Maybe have even a couple of people around, like for every race, like two people extra every race security-wise that are primarily for a potential post-race fight, because I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a cool, good idea, especially in this situation with Chastain and Suarez, where both would have agreed to fight. They would have fought whenever, wherever, as long as they were both, as long as these 3 things, as long as they were both going to be safe, as long as both the team sponsors would be okay with it, and they wouldn't get fined. Because I did hear the concerns, if I fight, I'm going to get fined $50,000. And then you have Ricky Stenhouse saying, actually, it's $75,000. And to be fair, what Stenhouse did wasn't really a fight. That was more of just a punch. I don't know if Kyle Busch knew that was coming, per se. He probably should have known that was coming, but I don't know if he actually knew that punch was coming. And that's another thing I would tag on to this, is as long as both drivers agree to fight, they should be allowed to fight. But if one of those drivers doesn't agree to fight, and then the one that wanted to fight, for example, sucker punches him in the garage or something like that, they should get fined. That's like Suarez, not like Suarez, like Stenhouse did. I think they should be fined like Stenhouse did if they throw some sort of sucker punch, or if they just punch a driver when they have not agreed to fight, or they jump the gun and right when they get out of the car, they just walk over, because we've seen that before too. Like drivers walk over to the window net and just punch the driver like right in their face when their face mask's open, just punch right in there. We've seen that many times as well. So that would be my solution. I think the drivers would be for it. I think the fans would be for it. I think some of the race teams would be for it. I think the people that would have to be won over would be NASCAR. And I think TV would be down for it too. I think it'd be NASCAR and the sponsors. And I think NASCAR, if everybody else that I'm talking about comes around to it, that I think is going to come around to it, I think NASCAR would be down. I think the big issue would be the sponsors. Obviously, there's going to be some sponsors that aren't going to want their drivers to fight. I think that's a conversation that the team owners and the teams, and maybe even NASCAR and the TV people like Fox and NBC and Prime and TNT and all these people, they might be the ones that need to talk to some of these sponsors and try to get them on board for something like this. Will something like this that I'm talking about, this outline that I've made out for NASCAR fighting happen? Probably not. But I think this is a golden idea that I have, because I think there should be NASCAR fighting allowed. I think it should be because they put it on all the advertisements anyway. They still like when we go to Kansas in a couple of weeks, they're going to show Chastain punching Gragson in the face. When we go to Wilkesboro later on in the year, they're going to show Kyle Busch getting punched in the face by Ricky Stenhouse. They're going to show these things. They're going to show these things. So might as well put it front and center for the fans live at the track to be able to see. And it also puts them in the grass. If one of those drivers gets knocked on their ass, it's not going to hurt as bad. They're not going to crack their head open or anything like that. They might get bruised up or something, but they're going to be fine. So I think that's the best way to do it. And obviously, if a driver decides to take it too far and like punch a guy when he's already down, then like there are certain rules and certain things they would have to figure out for this. And I think this probably wouldn't be, if they would come up with something even close to this, it wouldn't be a 2026 thing. It'd be a 2027 thing, I would say. I know this has been a discussion probably for a while at this point, even before Gregson Chastain and Kyle Busch, Stenhouse. I felt like we were having similar discussions when those things were happening. And I think this has just been happening for a long time. And I just don't know if the sponsors in NASCAR are down for any fighting. It doesn't seem like they are. But we'll have to see what the future holds for fighting in NASCAR. All I know is it's a big part of not just NASCAR, but local short track racing, stock car racing in general. You go to Bowman Gray, they fight every week. And that's just not, like, I know Bowman Gray gets a bad rap, but that's because it happens every week. But you go to any local short track, it happens probably once a month, once every couple of weeks. There's going to be some sort of fight, some sort of push, some sort of sucker punch. Something is going to happen. It's part of racing. There's so much money and there's livelihoods on the line with some of these things. So I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly okay with a little bit of fighting here and there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about fighting in NASCAR?